In the beginning was the gospel preached to the Son, and the gospel was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was with the Son, and the Son was with God, and the Son was of God. In him was the light, and the light was the life of men. Go ye therefore into all the world, and teach all nations. Jesus spake, saying, I am the light of the world. He who followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Hello everyone, welcome, good Monday night, welcome to Leahona Live. I hope that you're having a good family home evening. This is my first test run to do it live. So, we're going to see how this works and everything, but I felt like I needed to explain a little bit more about my conversion process, okay? We're going to go back as far as July of 2000, okay? July 5th of 2000, I flew from Odessa, from an international airport to Dallas-Fort Worth to see my buddy Keith. And once again, he witnessed to me, but for some reason, it fell on deaf ears. You know, this is another one of those things, here, Jimmy, this is where the truth is, Jimmy, and I'm not listening. I don't know what it is, but it was something else. And so, here's what happened. I come back the 12th of July, okay? I had their intention to go to church camp the next weekend, right? But here was the thing. I got depressed and ended up staying with my parents. And it was at that point that I started thinking, I had gone to another Baptist church apart from Brad and his audience, because I really felt like I was not progressing anywhere near where I was meant to progress. Okay, so I'm spending time alternating between my parents and Jim Bob, sometime at home. And then came August of 2000, okay? This was a watershed month for me, because there were lots of times at that point that Jim Bob was ignoring me. And at the same time, you had Brad saying, Jimmy, I have a feeling you're about to become Mormon on me. Don't do this. And so, I'm kind of miserable still, And so, here's what happened. Here's what the beginning, the genesis of all this is about, okay? If you're willing to listen and bear with me a little bit. So by September, I thought, you know what? Once again, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Now, once again, I started reading the Book of Mormon. Now, once again, I was kind of dividing it like a science, but with a little bit different angle. Okay? At that time, I began watching a local Christian TV station that covers the Jewish roots of Christianity. And so I started doing a little comparison of what they were teaching juxtaposed to what I was reading in the Book of Mormon. And I'll tell you something, that made for some confusion, because it was that point that I was kind of like, you know what, I'm going to start looking in the footnotes and see what I can find as far as any references in the Book of Mormon that point to the Bible. And I'm studying in Jewish roots and Hebrew roots, rather, and the faith at the same time. And believe it or not, I found a lot of parallels. And at the same time, I am looking through the church website, and there was an elder cook that had a speech to BYU. And he was talking about the needs to asking for priesthood blessings if you're depressed, and the prayer, God help me. And I'm going to tell you something. When I read that, I thought, hey, maybe this is what Keith is talking about, It's kind of like, I open my eyes. This is what Keith is talking about. Jimmy, if you're miserable, this is the beginning of your answer, so that you can feel better and not be miserable. Okay? And so here's the thing. I knew that I had to study it for myself. I even took that missionary copy and wagged it with me, even to see my family and my parents. And sometimes when they were getting involved in some conversation I'd rather have not gotten involved in, I would just whip out that Book of Mormon and start studying, unbeknownst to them. Except I think Mama knew that I was interested. And so there we go, she knew I was interested. And the more and more I studied, the more and more I knew that it was true. Okay? Now, here's something. I guess it was it was still in September. I was still having some problems with Brad and Jim Bob. I mean, I was just miserable, okay? And so I opened up the Book of Mormon to Jacob chapter 2, verse 8. And it says, "And it supposeth me that they came up hither to hear the pleasing word of God. Yea, the pleasing word which healeth the wounded soul." You talk about feeling comfort from head to toe. It's like, this prophet is ministering to people. And the more I read Jacob 2, of course, I was not reading the Book of Mormon at this point in order or with real intent. And so, what happened is this. The months passed. October. November. I'm hanging out with Brad some weekends. Friday, coming home Saturday to have church. Every once in a while I would skip church. Especially if I sensed there was some contention. And I would go over to sometimes the Sunday night service or Wednesday night service. And I would come home just feeling very uncomfortable. Because they were talking about, the evangelical thing of witnessing. And I had tried, when I lived in Arlington, there was a couple that lived with us. And I'm giving them the pseudonyms because I believe they tried to block my progression as well. The pseudonyms are Frank and Sierra. And their boyfriend and girlfriend. It was not a very healthy relationship. But Sierra asked me to witness to Frank because they felt like that we had a connection. I said, Sierra asked me to witness to Frank because she believed he had a connection. Biggest mistake. Because one night he cornered me and he said, "Who in the bleep do you think you are? You're no priest. I don't have to confess to you that I'm a sinner." Of course, I'm not making fun of anyone's religion or anything, but I tried witnessing. And things finally got to a head, and that's why I gave my ex-wife the ultimatum that led to the end of the marriage. The ultimatum was to get rid of Sierra and Frank. But anyway, I digress. So, things were really coming to a head. And so, I think it was the 5th of January, the night of the 5th of January, 2001, I called Keith. I said, Keith, man, I just can't take it no more. I'm just totally unhappy, crying all the time. I don't think Jim Bob wants to have much to do with me that much anymore. And Brad, he said, forget about Jim Bob and Brad. Have you read the Book of Mormon? I said, yeah, in some ways I have. He said, but Jimmy, have you read it cover to cover and with real intent? And I was like, whoa. No way, Keith. Jimmy, read it. You do your best to read it the best way you know how. And I promise you, when I come see you, I'll bring you a copy. A large print copy. Of course, I start reading. Of course, we all know, February 27th, Margarita, the lawyer from Legal Aid, fired me. And, of course, in March, I read that particular verse, 2 Nephi 2:25. And it was like that bell was ringing. The bell was ringing. I couldn't unring it. I knew I had to convert. Even the 28th of February, sitting there, writing my journal entry while I'm watching TV, Christian TV, sitting there, almost crying, because I knew that the church had to be true. I mean, it was kind of like, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? And so, that reached a turning point. So I started reading it more and more and more. I began studying the church website, getting emails and clippings of church news, and there was a missionary that had been wounded, and I said my prayers for him. It was like I was in real intent, and Keith was supposed to come visit me in, I believe it was late March, early April, around the time of Easter. And guess what? Keith couldn't come. He was having some health difficulties. So I had, and I wouldn't mind having this with fellow members of the church if they're willing to. The thing is, it's a little bit different from the traditional Passover. I call it my Christian Passover. You get some lamb, you broil it or you grill it, and you get some pierogi. And that's pretty much what you have. And then afterwards, I had Christian communion. And I was going to say the sacrament prayers, and Jim Bob said, Jimmy, if you did that, it's a dead giveaway to Brad. He'll automatically think that you're going to join the church. Okay, so we did that, and Jim Bob stayed the night, and I told him I was thinking about conversion. Okay, Easter. Good Friday. He had left. I was sitting there all alone. And I was so sad and so lonely and so miserable that I called Julie and was thinking about social drinking again. And I called Keith and told him what my plan was. He said, Jimmy, call your parents. So I called my parents, and I spent Easter weekend with my parents. It was at that point there was another turning point. It was like, okay, I get it. Keith is trying to save my life. I didn't need to be social drinking. It's just plain wrong. Because I remember what Dr. Elizabeth told me. You remember her from a previous episode? That she told me that it was just plain wrong. So I didn't do it. In fact, I repented of my desire to social drink. Because I was making a commitment 6 months before conversion to start living the word of wisdom gradually. A few weeks later, I go to the hospital to get some tests ran. because the